Hi everyone! Welcome to today's presentation, Excitable Brains, Reducing Stress for Families on the Purple Spectrum. This is in honor of Epilepsy Awareness Week, and I have been preparing for this for quite a while. What I didn't prepare for was having two presentations, so we're going to have this introductory presentation and then a follow-up call. So bear with me as I've made some changes that may not fit the PowerPoint completely. But hopefully you'll get the gist of what I'm trying to do here, which is mainly just to say we all have stress. And how we think about stress, if we approach it in a more nuanced way, will help us to prepare more compassionate, kind environments for our kids. And any child can benefit from this, but this is especially for you parents that are going through tough times, because if your child is being treated for a seizure disorder and still having seizures, especially, it can be hard. And many of us have been there. Some of us have kids that are complex with a range of different challenges. So we're all coming from different places, perspectives, life experiences, and I hope that we can all unite on this one thing, which is our cause to end epilepsy. I'm not affiliated with any epilepsy nonprofit. I am not a doctor, and I'm not here to talk about epilepsy from the perspective of the medical field, so much as I am representing the neurophysiological base in parenting the fields and psychology, not as a psychologist, but as a parent coach, to help you understand stress and reactivity and how we can just make the day a bit better. So, Excitable Brains came from watching a wonderful talk on the author of The Teenage Brain. I think her name is Amy Jensen. She described the uniqueness of young brains and how there are so few medicines available to suit pediatric needs. Simply put, young children have extremely excitable brains, and because young kids have even more excitement than average, this explains why epilepsy is so common in childhood. Seizures, as you know, occur when two neurons fire at the same time and cause a thunderstorm in the brain. You've all bared witness to the storm. And I personally have experienced this storm. It can be extremely discombobulating. We get really tired afterwards and cranky, particularly when we're young kids. For me, the triggers were being tired. So I had general complex partial psychomotor seizures, which is a fancy way of saying that in the beginning of the seizure, it was like a big meltdown. I saw things, I hallucinated, and I could get myself into scary places. My favorite place was to lock myself in the closet, and a few of the times I turned on the water without my mom having the key to the bathroom. I think I was around 4 years old. That's scary. I remember waking up out of seizures and everyone crying in the room sometimes because I had worried them so much. In some ways, witnessing seizures are more stressful for the parents and for the family than for the person who has epilepsy, because many times we don't remember fully what happened. Now, at the same time, this can be extremely distressing to wake up out of a place. Sometimes we wet ourselves, and when we get older, it becomes increasingly different, our experience. But all of us know that have had or do have epilepsy, that we're just a little different from other people. And some parents, they want to focus on how we're alike, and that's wonderful. But I had a parent who focused on how special I was, and that really helped me. So what she was doing, maybe without realizing it, was cognitive reframing, helping me see things from a different perspective, not taking away the struggle. I know a lot of parents, they can get upset with me when I reframe things because they think I'm taking away the challenge. And I'm not saying it's not a challenge. I'm not saying it's not a medical disorder. It can be debilitating. And as children get older, so embarrassing. But there's something really unique about excitable-brained kids, and we should celebrate that. I'm not celebrating the disorder, but I think these kids are pretty unique, and all of them individual snowflakes with their own special talents and skills that we need to elucidate to them. You're more than your disorder. You're not epilepsy. You have epilepsy. But sometimes it can feel like the whole family has epilepsy, or at least is suffering in similar ways from the stress of it all, especially when your child has untreatable epilepsy. What's really cool about epilepsy that I found out recently in my studies is that it's a spectrum disorder, which makes absolute sense. No person with epilepsy presents in the same exact way, although there are, of course, similarities. So I have to be very careful here. Many people in the audience have children with the less sexy types of epilepsy. They may require surgery and have multiple complex needs. They're not like me. I had hidden needs. I developed dyscalculia and had ADHD, but because I was a female and because I didn't have hyperactivity like my brother, they just ignored it. And as a result, I had some issues with social engagement and really didn't make friends until I was much older, which is okay. But having the tools and understanding that maybe it was because of epilepsy, that at age 12 when they said I no longer had it, there were going to be repercussions that would be felt for the rest of my life. I would have liked to have known that. But they don't tell you those things. They say, congratulations, no more seizures. But some of us will struggle after that. Some of us will struggle with identity. For so long, we were tied to that. And it sounds kind of funny, but that's what happened to me. In some ways, I was grieving. I'm not the person I always was. And that's normal. So if you have a kiddo who's no longer with seizures, but you'd like to attend this event, it is a kind of grief for some of us. Yes, it's a celebration. There's a new beginning, but there's change, and change can be tough. So when we think about being on the purple spectrum and having excitable brains, this kind of makes us feel special. And I found this reframe really allows for expansion of the positive bias and the infinite possibilities of the fantastic elastic brain of a child with epilepsy. Not all of us will outgrow epilepsy, or our kids will outgrow epilepsy. But many children will have a chance if diagnosed at young ages. And so I just wanted to start with, as I always do in any group, some ground rules. In this space, we are striving to hold space for each other, to not offer unnecessary or unsolicited suggestions. You're not broken. I'm not here to fix you. In fact, in coaching, I'm just here to bring out the best in you. And to do that, we can't ignore the elephant in the room. We can't pretend there aren't challenges that come with being epilepsy parents. Perhaps some of us are wrestling with guilt, like me. In the beginning, when I found out my daughter might have epilepsy, and we're still in this journey of uncertainty. We've had the EEG, we've had the MRI, there was a high activity in the EEG, there were nodules in the MRI that quote unquote may indicate seizures. But now that we're sheltering in place, we can't do the last step. We can't have a video EEG and confirm these seizures. Does she have epilepsy or not? Are the strange meltdowns she's having that are similar to the ones I was having around the same age, are they indicative of epilepsy or indicative of just maybe ADHD or just being a child? We still don't know. Uncertainty hangs in the air. In this crisis, which we have to acknowledge is a crisis, whether we're close to it or not. Our bodies are reacting to the uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen from day to day, what news we're going to hear. We're in and out of highly reactive stress states. This is normal for a lot of us that are raising children with special needs. I have a child with ADHD, and that comes with a lot of behavioral challenges. But this space is not about fixing. It's about acknowledging feelings, validating the normalcy of being frustrated, of being angry, of sometimes getting so mad you yell. Raise your hand if you've been yelling recently. I know I have. And that's okay. But for our kids, it's highly stressful. So look at this quote. There's so much hope. There's so much power in it. When you stand and share your story in an empowering way, your story will heal you, and your story will heal someone else. That's what group coaching is all about. It's not about me being the expert telling you how to feel, how to think, and how to raise your kid. No. It's about tapping into your creativity, tapping into all those things that are good inside your family system, acknowledging the pain and moving through it together. Not looking back on past trauma. We're not here to heal the wounds in terms of therapy, but through our connection with each other and our shared stories, I guarantee you this is a place that can heal. Will it? I don't know. It's up to what you put into it. It's up to how you respond to it. And that's the same with having a child with complex needs. You can make it more difficult for yourself, and that's okay. Because the fact is, if you don't have the energy, if you're running on an empty tank, this kind of stuff is just going to make you angry, and rightly so. It's not going to help. You have to be in a space to use your thinking brain, to get out of that reactivity or activation state. And maybe you're there. Maybe you're so upset right now and you're going, aha, this is normal. It is. Right now, we're crisis parenting, we're crisis schooling, crisis learning, and crisis living. So there's a lot of uncertainty. And to add to our normal stressors, it can be a recipe for a whole lot of hurt. But whether or not you're coming from a place of healing or hurting, I guarantee you there is stress. And when we start to understand stress in a more complicated manner, it opens up the chance to really provide a safe, kind, and compassionate environment for our kids to flourish. So the main goal here today is to say, number one, you're not alone. Number two, there are things you can do to help mitigate stress, to help prepare yourself for the inevitable stress. For example, a seizure is a very stressful time. And for some parents, you have to act quickly. You have to go to the hospital. For others, you have to ride through it. So you're going to have different ways of dealing with stress. Some can do it in the moment, and some have to do it after the moment. We all are coming from different places in our journey with our kids, and that's important to acknowledge. But we can also make a plan. But that plan can't be made until we truly understand what it is that's stressing us out. 3 is to show you how you've already reduced stress, how you've already used creativity, to think about and share those stories where things worked. So that's what we do. In appreciative inquiry, the kind of coaching that I'm trained in, we ask, what's good, what's strong, what's working. And we're going to do that. But first, we have to acknowledge the challenges. And there are very real challenges in raising a child with epilepsy. Now, normally we start a meeting, I ask you to celebrate. So I want you to share the little things that happened this week. Anything to how you better handled your anger or good news from home. This is a great way to help reduce tension and get your energy into that space to get ready to create, to learn, to focus, and to have hope. So if you're watching this webinar, I want you to think about what you can celebrate this week. And it can be something as small as I had a chance to go to the bathroom by myself. I had a coffee that tasted really good the other day. What we focus on grows. Grow the positive in your life. And if you can't do that, then know that's a signal telling you you're too stressed. And that's okay. You'll get there. And I advise you maybe to turn off this webinar and wait till you're in a space to really listen, because then you'll benefit from it. And if you're not in the space and you're feeling really negative, having that negative bias, then just wait until you're ready. You'll know, and I'll be here. So in the new paradigm shift in parenting, the focus is inward. It's not on the behavior of our children, it's on ourselves. We, the adult, the possessor of the higher order thinking brain that can help our lower order thinking brain child to calm down until we can't. We who parent children with epilepsy, and I don't count myself among your ranks yet, but I could be, understand that sometimes there are things totally beyond our control. We can't calm down our little ones during a seizure, or can only do it a little bit. And we've taken a lot of time to figure out, and a lot of planning and energy and wondering and writing down to think about how we can make things better. So you are experts on this. You've already done so much. I'm just here to give you a few tools for your toolbox and a space to create. The Thayer matrix is something we use in self-reg, and you can see that it's adapted from Robert E. Thayer's The Origin of Everyday Moods, Managing Energy, Tension, and Stress. According to Thayer, these are the energy and tension that we hold. If we hold for too long in any of these quadrants, we start developing mood disorders. So if we're in the top red quadrant of high energy, high tension, where I am right now, for too long, we start turning into manic people. And remember, a lot of people are manic depressive. So on the opposite corner there, matching the red, is the black. That's the low energy, high tension state. This is when you get into your fight or flight, the tantrums come, the yelling happens, you start shouting at people or running away, hiding in the bathroom, whatever it is. That's the state, the black state, where you're innervated, you have no energy, you're tapped out. We've all been there as moms, especially, or dads, especially moms and dads of children that are younger. And add to that epilepsy and seizures, you've got a recipe sometimes for disaster. And that's just part of life. So on the Thayer matrix, we have the yellow quadrant of high energy, low tension. You might be there. You're not so focused or in flow like I have to be in order to do this webinar. You're pretty happy. Or you could be kind of a blob on the couch, low energy, low tension, which can be great. Can be a state for creativity. When you're at your sleepiest, you actually can create and do great things. But it also could mean you look pretty lazy. So you can oscillate between blue and red, blue and yellow, blue, yellow, red, down to black, back to red. It's how our body works. We're all about energy and fueling ourselves, and also tension. So notice the tension in your shoulders, in your chest, in your belly. I, for one, had a lot of problems with my stomach after giving birth. And it really flares up off and on now, ever since I had children, even after my second. It actually got worse after my second. So I know about holding tension in my belly, but honestly, I don't feel it all the time. I'm not in touch and aware because I have to stop. I have to think about it. And most of us don't stop. We go, 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 go. For me, I go, 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 go with studies. I'm always doing some kind of course or certification. And I used to go, go, go outside all the time because I just wanted to escape my reality. And it took me a long time to realize that that was from stress. Maybe you are like that. You can also be just into people. So I'm not saying it's something wrong, but notice when you were able to go out, how often did you go out? Was it so often that people said, "Are you ever at home?" Or your own child, like me, called you on it and said, "I want to go home, Mommy. Why do we have to leave all the time?" When I was pregnant with my eldest, to keep awake, we left the house. We went to malls. This is life in the GCC. There are malls everywhere, and it's too hot to play a lot of the time. So, where are you in your theometrics? This is all about reflecting and enhancing your stress awareness. How do you feel right now? Are you tense? Are you not tense? Where is your tension? This is a lot to do with mindfulness. Self-reg is linked to mindfulness, but you don't have to meditate to be mindful and to build those interoceptive skills, to listen to your body. The mantra we must have with parenting, childcare, nursing, or tending to others is to first look within. We cannot co-regulate our child without starting our own self-reg journey. It is hard. Sometimes you might feel like you're walking on eggshells or waiting for a time bomb to explode. If it's not the seizures, it's dealing with kept rages or mood swings or guilty feelings and pain that you cannot take on the burden of your child. This is not easy. No one ever said it was. But that doesn't mean it's not hard. And you're a great mother, even if you say, "Hey, right now, things are hard." It's the best thing we can do for our kids, to model taking care of ourselves, acknowledging our feelings, and then doing that for them because they're not quite ready. Hey, we are not quite ready sometimes. So now we've come to the bulk of the presentation, which will be on Shanker Self-Reg and the 5 practices. Now, it used to be called the 5 steps, but we've changed it to 5 practices because it's not a linear thing. These are non-linear steps. In many ways, it's like a dialectic, so you'll go around in a circle. So for example, today our focus is on reducing our stress load, but we really can't do that without recognizing our stress and developing a deeper, more nuanced understanding of stress, which requires reframing the behaviors we associate with stress. So the time-honored, not "my child is giving me a hard time," "my child is having a hard time," which becomes easier when you have a child with additional needs and definitely epilepsy. They don't mean to have seizures. It's something that is happening to them, and it's a bottom-up principle. So we will be working with bottom-up behaviors a lot with these children because they're not yet capable of self-regulation. And bottom-up just means things that are related to the nervous system. So things that are stressors, stress behaviors as a result of the stress on the system. And thinking about stress neurophysiologically, which means anything that takes away our energy, that zaps us and puts us into that low energy, high tension state, or low energy, low tension state. Because for some of us, getting our kids motivated to do things might be a challenge, and that's because they're stuck in the blue state, the sleepy state, the Snorlax, if you're a Pokemon fan. So we can start self-reg at any point. And it's really important to keep in mind that what self-regulation in this model is referring to is managing stress and tension, how much energy we expend, and understanding how well we recover. So what do we do to rejuvenate? How do we bring our energy back? And again, if you're in a state where you have the energy to listen to this talk, then things can be accomplished. But if you're not in a state to listen, and you're feeling activated by this talk, the likelihood of you being able to work through your stressors, name them, journal them, it's going to be lower, and that's okay. Recognize that as a signal, not something you have to control, but just recognize what state you're in. And that's what self-reg fundamentally is all about, getting in touch with yourself. It's a kind of mindfulness, and it's something that we just don't do these days. We don't get in touch with our bodies. Right now, you probably need to go to the bathroom. How many moms, we stop going to the bathroom when we have kids? We stop feeling it. When we're asked to sit and think and meditate, we realize we're in pain, that there's things that we haven't taken care of in our bodies because we're too busy taking care of others. So I'm going to ask you to do that. Just take a moment to sit. Think about your body. Get in touch with your heartbeat. Is it beating fast? Is it beating slow? Is it medium? All these other thoughts are going to come into your head. That's okay. Mindfulness is not about taking away bad thoughts. It's about watching those thoughts, observing them, and being objective with them, and not subjecting yourself to recrimination. Or in the self-reg sense, thinking you have to control your behavior, that you're not good enough at stopping yourself from doing something that you know is harmful. That's not useful. Why don't we look instead at the behavior, the thought, whatever it is, as just a signal telling us something? Just like the signals in our body that tell us to eat, to sleep, to go to the bathroom. Those things that our children are just developing and having a hard time developing due to their illness or their age. So I think most people know that mindfulness is not about attacking your thoughts. It's not about taking them away. But some people, they tend to think because of the popular characterization of mindfulness that it's taking away the negative. And that couldn't be further from the truth. It's about observing your thinking and getting curious. And the more you get curious and the less you start shaming, blaming, and doing bad things to yourself, harming yourself, by forcing yourself to do things you're not ready for, that's really mindfulness. It's like, I really feel angry right now. What am I going to do with that? Instead of going and yelling, I can write it down. I can try to figure out why it's there. Now, in the moment, you probably won't be able to do this. You're reacting, you're highly reactive, but you can start developing this skill. And then in the moment, you can start accessing and practicing the skill of calming yourself down. It's a lifelong process. It takes a lot of time. And some of you will be at the beginning of your journey. Some of you will be in the middle. Some of you will be really masters of this and can help everyone else, including myself, who I still yell. And I came from a house full of yellers, and I am very passionate. So it's part of who I am. So there's a difference between when I'm yelling and being passionate and excited and when I'm yelling and being scary. And my kids know the difference, trust me, and I do too. All right, so now we're on recognizing stressors. And I gave everyone a handout, and I also created a Google document. And I want to invite those of you that are interested to use this Google document not only to record your own personal stressors, but to also add stressors. And when we think about stressors with kids with epilepsy, we're also thinking about triggers. So getting too hot, that could be a trigger. Getting too tired, that could be a trigger. Getting stressed can be a trigger. Although there's a lot of literature on how, stress-related seizures they happen, but they're not something to really worry about. And that's true. But we know that when things are going well, more often than not, we aren't going to have those stress-related or tired-related seizures as much. At least that's my personal story. And a lot of kids, they just have seizures that are uncontrollable. But you will notice patterns over time. And so thinking about this is really helpful. And most epileptologists and neurologists advise charting these behaviors. For me, that's a stress. To just get a chart out and try to write down what's happening, it's really stressful, but it's something I know I have to do because it's going to help. And that's an example of a cognitive stress. So we have 5 domains of stressors. This is when I say self-reg has a nuanced neurophysiological definition of stress. And this comes from Walter Cannon and Hans Selye. So we have biological, emotion, cognitive, social, and prosocial stressors. You're probably familiar with all, but the prosocial might make you think something about empathy. And yes, empathy is a stress. It can be difficult to be kind when we're under stress. And let's think about that as parents. It's so true. When our kids are bugging us and pushing those buttons, not intentionally because they themselves are stressed or reacting to our stress or a combination of things, it's hard for us to be kind. And often we're not. Often we have to repair and apologize and say, we're going to do better next time. And that's human, and that's okay. Self-reg is not about being inhuman. It's about recognizing when you're in that state where you're reactive and then trying to see if there's proactive strategies to reduce those or in the moment to even stop them, which Dr. Schenker says is very hard. So don't strive for trying to stop yourself in the moment. Try to strive for understanding before you get to that moment what is bringing it about. And that's how we can reduce things. So we can't reduce stressors without recognizing stressors on a deeper level. And I want to give you an example that might make you laugh. But for some, it may make you go, yeah, I feel this way. So look at the color purple. And we're going to talk about hidden stressors in relation to the purple ribbon campaigns that go on, particularly in the US. I don't think Qatar, where we live, and UAE have it as often, but you definitely will see it on social media. So this is just a way to illustrate how individualized stressors can be. So think about this color. For some of us, the color of epilepsy awareness is beautiful. My mom loves purple, and she raised me to like purple as well, although I do love dark blue. It may even make us hopeful that Qatar is moving forward, or wherever we are is moving forward in addressing the illness, too long stigmatized. For others, it can make us angry. Think about pink for breast cancer awareness. Going purple has not, in the end, brought a cure for epilepsy, and it's in some ways reduced the real struggles of people with epilepsy to reduce it to just a month or a week, like Epilepsy Awareness Week. And then everyone else can go about their day and forget about it, but we have to live it. So maybe it's got nothing to do with epilepsy. You just hate the color. And there's a lot of people that don't like the color purple. And that's okay. But you don't like seeing it everywhere during the month of April. May. Remember the dyscalculia? Maybe you're the opposite. Maybe the color purple excites you and awakens your sense of social justice. It's a pro-social stressor. So as much as it's great to think about other people, think about right now in this crisis with people less fortunate than us. It's a stress to think about others, to empathize with others, to extend compassion. It's really a luxury for some. So as happy as you feel, you still might have a little less energy from that ribbon. What about that social media post? Those Facebook or WhatsApp groups you belong to that call on your empathy and compassion or make you feel sad or guilty for a moment as you celebrate a friend's good news and cannot help but think about your own situation. Why can't my child be seizure-free like those kids on social media? How about the Sidra Hospital baby statues? One of my friends who frequents the hospital says the statues, quote-unquote, freak her out. No stressor is too small. And my kids love it, and we've had lots of opportunities to talk about the birds and the bees through those statues. So we get excited when we see it. But again, that's just a little bit of energy draining away from our kids. We notice when our kids get into that state where they're kind of manic and laughing and can't stop laughing, that drains a lot of energy. And often you'll see them crash at the end of that. No stressor is too small. Now you might be thinking, Amanda, really a color can make the difference between me yelling at my kids and not yelling? Well, yeah, it can. Because you just need that one little thing tick, 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 to go to set you off. And sometimes we don't even know what it is. Could be that the house is a total mess, and it takes us a while to realize organization is our thing. We don't like things to look cluttered because it makes our head feel cluttered. It gives us cognitive stressors, biological stressors. We don't like too much noise visually. This really makes a difference. That's why in Montessori, having spaces that are really calm in the colors and in the way that it's designed to be natural and muted tones, it makes a difference with how these kids that are supposed to be working independently can't work independently if the space is too bright, because it'll bother a certain segment of that population. And when you see some of the quote-unquote Montessori schools here in the Gulf and in other parts of the world, they have kind of forgotten the main lesson, that the environment is the teacher in Montessori in many ways, the third teacher, and in Reggio. So you have to tend to that environment. As I speak, I'm looking at a total mess. My house is crazy messy, and I know that affects my son. I know it affects my husband, and I know that if we could mitigate that stressor, but I have ADHD and cleaning is a nightmare for me because of executive function skills. So I have to work myself up to it to get that energy, to get that excitement, to play, music really loudly and pump myself up, which doesn't really work that well during Ramadan, which luckily is finishing, but it's hard for me to clean. But I know my kids need it. Okay, that's a signal. I can't do anything about it right now, but I can do something small to make a difference in one corner of the room and make myself feel a little better and make them feel a little bit better. But I'm not going to beat myself up anymore. And that's the beauty of what self-reg has done. So really, all the little stressors in your life, if you can write them down right now, maybe pause the video and think about them in a more nuanced way. Check with the domains of stress that I've given you. This is for adult stressors mostly. And think about yourself first. The oxygen mask goes on the parent, not the child. So first, let's try to deal with us and do our own inner work. All these tiny things, they build up and they help to contribute to our dysregulation, which helps contribute to our family's dysregulation. So now we're going to think about stressors specific to our children with epilepsy. And I want you to look at this video. It's about 4 minutes, 25 seconds about having an unsedated MRI. It's from Northwestern University in the United States. So note that the video is detailing preparation for an MRI without drugs. This is my personal preference for my daughter. It's what I did when I was younger, and she did successfully have an MRI without sedation, to the shock of most of the people there, because they didn't think it was possible. We trained for a long time. For a month, we practiced with the MRI, with the sounds, and I made sure that she was comfortable enough that maybe she could do it on the actual day. And she really did. She wriggled a little bit, but it was over in less than 35 minutes. So some of our kids can't do that. There's no judgment here. Some adults can't. I remember we were talking in the park with one of the people at the institute where my husband works, and he was saying that he discovered he was claustrophobic when he took his MRI. Now this man is well into his 40s, and he couldn't take it. So there's really a range of people that can handle and not handle it, regardless of age. So I want you to watch the video and think about all the ways the child life pros at Northwestern reduced both adult and child stressors. So if you can make a column for adult stressors and a column for child stressors, and think about the ways that this child life professional helped to mitigate stress across the 5 domains. It's not important what stressor fits in what domain, but just think about it in a broader way than normal. So can you list all the stressors and how they reduced? Can you think of anything they did that might have had the opposite effect on you or your child? So sometimes these things work, sometimes they don't, and we always have to have a backup plan. So use the handout and really think about stressors across the 5 domains as you watch. You may have to watch multiple times since you have your own time to do this in this webinar. You can skip it if you want to, but if this is a useful exercise for you, since we've all had the MRI experience, and some of us it might have been really traumatic, so share those stories too. How could we have made it a little less traumatic for everyone involved? And would you have benefited from having a place like Northwestern? Or do you think that there was no way that your child could ever have done this. And the way you did it was the best way for your family. That's fine. Absolutely. We're open, compassionate, and loving here. I would have regretted it if I hadn't tried, and I almost wasn't allowed to do it. So they said she was too young for weeks. And then I finally just went to Sidra. I talked to a child life professional. I found one. And I said, look, we really want to try this out, but her MRI is in 3 days. Or I think I went on a Thursday, the week before the weekend. And a child life professional said, you know what? We can try on Sunday. Her appointment is on Monday. She won't have to go into the main clinic if she's going to try with us in the first place on Sunday. And we'll see if she can do it. And then she could still make her appointment. My God, how much stress was reduced that day? I cannot tell you. And there are lots of stressors we can talk about that were reduced. For example, my cognitive load, my emotional strain, because I had promised her we would try to do it. The social effects of this, like having someone understand that it really mattered to me that my child have the same chance I did to take an unsedated MRI, no matter the age, but I trust her. And I knew she could do it. And we had practiced so hard. So to imagine having practiced so hard and never even get the chance, because I knew maybe there was no chance of it happening. But what if there was? And so when they gave me that chance, and my daughter, I was overwhelmed with happiness. It was a little energy draining just to hear good news for a while. So the bottom line is, stress is not what you think it is. It's not always quote unquote bad, and it's not always quote unquote good. Things that excite us, that also drain our energy. We understand that with kids, but sometimes not so much with ourselves. So that's a picture of Mira, my daughter, who is 3 years old. She's still 3, she's almost 4. And her first MRI. You'll notice that there's a little stuffed animal next to her. And that was given by one of my members of the Nurture Me team who wanted to provide some comfort. And man, did it help, because it also helped the technician show her what was going to be done to her through that doll. So then one thing we have in common is that we have all dealt with the stress of seizures in the family or of medical procedures, non-invasive or otherwise. So what do you do in the moment and proactively? So in the moment would be when you're yelling, when they're resisting, the tantrums are happening, or the seizure's happening for us, or that fear of the seizure is happening, whether it happens or not. And proactively, so before the meltdown, before all these things happen, to make a plan, to have strategies. Maybe you have lots of strategies. Maybe you're not one to make plans. I'm not a huge planner, but I had to be about certain things. So what have you done to help reduce stressors and potential stressors from seizures? Really, it's often not about the seizure itself. It's the lack of control and the guilt that you cannot make the pain go away. But there are tangible steps you can take to help make the meds more efficacious by reducing stress-induced episodes. And this is something the Schenker Merit Center and the Self-Reg Institute has done actually a few articles about epilepsy and self-reg. So basically, with all conditions, be it ADHD or epilepsy, having self-reg for the parents in particular, and then they were able to help their children, helped to reduce or make the medicine work better and reduce seizures that were stress-induced. Some parents know the triggers very well, but are still helpless to stop them. Other seizures come with no real warning. We must address self-care and couple care first. So a large part of what we do in the support group, or what I'm hoping to do in the support group, is talk to both parents, not just the mom. So if you do have a partner, or maybe it's a nanny, whoever is helping you, we need to be on the same page. And sometimes that can be quite difficult. You often have different ways of reacting to things, and that's fine. But being able to hold space for each other, that takes time, that takes skill, and it takes relationship building, which is really what a marriage is about, or any relationship, be it work relationship or family relationship, is about. So for your homework, and in this case, something that you can bring with you for discussion, you don't have to do any of these assignments. They're all suggested, but the whole point is to lighten your stress load, not make it harder for you. So don't do anything that's going to make it harder. And that includes watching all the video if you're just not able to concentrate. That's okay. You probably won't even hear this. So walk me through it. Choose one thing specific to your personal story with epilepsy and walk us through it proactively, thinking about how you would reduce stress. Here's a list I provided of suggested topics related to you, your child, or partner. Blood work or non-invasive procedures, building self-advocacy skills or becoming a parent advocate, sibling struggles, self-care for the parent, adolescence and peer relationships for children with epilepsy, talking to teachers, living with seizures, marriage struggles for parents of children with epilepsy. Come back ready to share what works for you and your child to reduce stressors. We all have things to celebrate. And parents, more than any other group of people in the world, especially right now, maybe teachers, we need a chance to celebrate those little successes, don't you think? So I hope this opened your eyes to a more nuanced perspective on stress, that you perhaps enjoyed the way that I reframed epilepsy as excitable brains and being on the purple spectrum. The thing I enjoy the most and why I did this is for those kids, because I was one of them. And meeting your kids is such a joy for me. Yes, a stressor, but a good one. Gives me so much energy and so much hope for the future. And I see myself in some of those kids. I see those quirky characteristics, and I see how hard it was to raise me, and I feel even more empathy and compassion for what my mother went through, who was a single mother at the time of most of my seizures. And we were living with my grandparents. And like I said, I would come out of seizures crying, with everyone crying, and wonder what happened. And I know it's so hard on families, and that's why I'm here. Anytime you need help that's non-therapeutic from a coaching space, I'm here. I really want to help you. I really want to meet your kids and get them to meet each other, because I know from past experiences, one of the best memories of my life was being in an epilepsy support group for kids where everyone had epilepsy except for a minor few. And that is an empowering feeling for a person that goes through something so rare, where they feel like they're the only one in the room, and they can be stigmatized and ostracized, particularly in this part of the world, but everywhere, for being different. You're not different. You're special. And that's the message my mother sent to me, and that's the message I hope you're sending to your kids. And you, parents of children with epilepsy, you're special too. And that's not always a bad thing. Think about all the skills you have now that you didn't have just from being a parent of a child with seizures. Have a lovely day. I look forward to the Zoom chat. It can go anywhere you want it to go. We don't have to get into the presentation. This is your group. Make of it what you will. Tell me what you want. I really would love to support you. Take care.